Hello, I'm Himanshi Tiwari and a very warm welcome to Ciena Presents ET Studios Tech Talks in association with ETTelecom. Now, as AI, cloud and hyperscale data centers redefine how digital economies function, networks are no longer just about connectivity. They are becoming the fabric that powers intelligence itself. Today's session, Fiber to AI Fabric, the new digital infrastructure playbook, looks at how infrastructure platforms and technology innovators are reimagining networks for the AI era. We'll begin with opening perspectives from our two speakers before moving into a moderated conversation on what this shift means for India and the Asia Pacific region. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us for this conversation. And we are joined by, of course, Amajit Gupta, Group CEO and Managing Director at Lightstorm. Amajit, Lightstorm often describes itself as a company which is not so much traditional telco company, right? It describes itself as a digital infrastructure platform. So talk to us about what this shift really means, especially in the AI-driven era.
So firstly, I think, thanks for inviting us to talk on this subject. But to answer your question, the shift is not specifically for Lightstorm as much as for what this industry represents.
Mm-hmm.
And we have seen the shift from the era that the internet became predominant and subsequently cloud and now AI.
Yeah.
So the repositioning or the positioning of Lightstorm as a company which is an AI or a cloud fabric actually speaks to that.
Yeah.
It just so happens that we are one of the newer companies in this game and therefore we have a chance to position ourselves naturally right in the center and middle of it, as opposed to many others who had to reposition themselves. And that's really why we speak ourselves as an AI fabric.
Yeah. But then who are your primary customers at this point in time?
So same answer, with the shift of what is to pass through telecom networks traditionally, which happened to be voice, move to the internet, then to the cloud, and now AI. And our customers are naturally people who are consumers of the cloud, which happens to be either the cloud providers, which is essentially what the world knows as hyperscalers, or even enterprises who consume cloud. So that's one big category, perhaps the sole category we cater to. And increasingly going forward with artificial intelligence is going to be people who actually run those artificial intelligence systems, as well as people who will likely use them, for example, for inferencing solutions, such as consumers like you and me, or enterprises who will use those models. So that's our broad landscape of whom we cater to.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. In the course of our conversation, of course, we're going to unpeel a lot of layers around this conversation. For now, thank you so much, Amajit. And to complement the whole infrastructure perspective, I now bring into the conversation Amit Malik, Regional Vice President and GM APJI at Ciena. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Amit, you work at the heart of optical networking innovation. So from your vantage point, how is the technology foundation itself changing when we talk about, AI scale networks? Tell about this and of course, more about your company's Ciena's strategic focus.
Sure. I think the world just changed for all of us over the last few years, right? AI has become the buzzword. And all of us are consuming. You use the chat GPTs of the world, and so is a lot of enterprises who have various charters around AI. So the answer to this question would have been a lot more simpler 2 years ago, but it's a lot more complex now. Like Amajit said, he's building networks for AI. In fact, what I say is it's just not enough to build network for AI. You have to build AI for networks as well.
That's
true. So it's that much more complicated.
Yeah.
As an organization, we've been pretty much at the forefront of technology because we are probably the only specialized organization in the world who just focuses more on coherent optics, right? And we've always been the first in terms of innovation, whether it was 400 gigs, 800 gigs, and now 1.6 tera, right? Probably the only organization that does 1.6 tera globally. Now, the technology is really evolving because the consumption patterns are evolving.
Yeah.
And while over the last few years, we keep reading about compute, we say so much compute happen, 1 gigawatt data centers coming up, multiple 1 gigawatt data centers coming up. But it's also about consumption. Because compute is only as good if not consumed, right? And I would probably say we are that bridge between compute and consumption. And that's exactly what Amajit does as well from Lightstorm. They help build that, and we help enable those bridges.
Yeah.
Right. From a technology perspective, I think, and the strategic focus that you said is the way the scale is moving today. It's very difficult for any service provider to really imagine what's going to happen in the near future. I'm not even talking about long-term future. Predictability is a word which certainly has dissipated from the dictionary. Because everything is so unpredictable. There was a good old days, which wasn't too far back, where you could predict that the data will grow at about 20% every year. I need to plan for that. Today, it's a step function. It's growing at a phenomenal pace. And it's more like a hockey stick curve. Now, how do you ensure that you kind of balance this scenario? And that's where our strategic focus comes up, where we help build networks which have AI embedded in that. They are scalable and they are adaptive as well. Because that's the only way you can address the sudden surge of bandwidth demands.
That's true. Well, thank you so much. While you were talking about your partnership with Lightstorm also, see, when we talk especially about Ciena, it began working with Lightstorm very early in your journey, right? Back in 2020, I guess, when it was still a startup. So how has that relationship evolved as Lightstorm now continues to evolve at scale? Answer this, and then we'll probably move on to unpeeling more
that's the one I
layers.
would love to answer, because this is what I love. And I was at an event of Lightstorm some time ago, and I said the way I describe Lightstorm is a very innovative organization. And I used a quote which says, people see things as they are and ask why. This team here saw things that never existed and said, why not? And that's how things started happening. That's what we loved about Lightstorm. Because none of us had a crystal ball, right? But we all had a view on how the market is going to evolve. And fortunately, I think that aligned very well. The way he thought, the way we thought was aligning. And we said, here is an organization who's thinking ahead of any of the conventional players. And we want to be partners with them. And that's how the journey started. And I think it's been a very fruitful one. We've really enjoyed this. And we are partners in everything. We co-ideate, we co-think, we share ideas, and we build together.
All right. On that note, over to you again. Now that was from Ciena's perspective, from Lightstorm's perspective. How important are long-term technology partnerships like this with Ciena?
Now, look, we are an unabashed startup, and we want to be like that forever. We are 5 years old, and we think our existential reason is because we can retain the freshness to innovate and create spaces in the marketplace for our customers. Now, to do that, you need strong partners. And I think almost everybody will tell you they need strong partners. When you unpack that, what do you need in partners? You just need two things, at least in our business. One is great people, the other is great technology. In Ciena, I think we have a perfect match of the two, which is not just the technology they build. They've proven themselves over the years. They continue to prove themselves now, but more about the people and the relationships and the soundness of values that we jointly share to be able to create something in this market. So we have been from day one very, very grateful for the support we have got from Ciena from day one. It's not easy for a startup to stand up and say, we want to do business with the biggest and the brightest and be trusted. And we're very grateful for the support. And I think it goes both ways. We have been at the front end of experimenting anything they've got us to the table and will continue to do so in the future. But more than anything else, I think I'll summarize by saying, these are the two simple principles of innovating with great technology and with some great people, which really has made this partnership works. And I just hope it goes on for another 5-10 years.
I mean, I would like to add to that. And when he says great people, because you see, networks is one thing, but the human networks that you build, they are foundational to any partnership.
That's
I think with the Lightstorm, that is something which gelled right from day one. At all levels, I think we are superbly well connected.
Now that's the one question on human networks that wasn't in my list, but thank you so much for answering that. It is as important as you just said. Let's zoom out a bit and talk from the India's perspective as well. The question for you is, like, when you look at the network evolution today, of course it's huge. It's at an exponential pace, right? How is India now emerging as a key hub in global data flows, and not just as a consumer?
Well, firstly, I think I made the statement that if you look at the placement geographically of where we are and put economic power across geographies and tie it together, you'll actually find from a network perspective, we're less than 15 milliseconds away from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the hotspots.
Well said.
So, which basically means you could build your infrastructure almost anywhere across the globe, connected back to India, and still have it available for across the world.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of networking and what's been created. Now, if that was foundational, then you compare it with most other markets, you suddenly feel this the rank order of why India becomes such a hotspot for investments as well as sustainable investments. So that's one part. The second part, I know you mentioned kind of consumption in a passing way, but for me, having seen internet, mobile, and cloud, I haven't seen local absorption of technology as fast as it happened in AI. The mobile didn't take off in India, Southeast Asia as fast as it took over in Europe when it took over. Same for internet. But look at what has happened in AI. OpenAI has the largest user base in India. So is Copilot. And that's almost consistent with the day they started off in US. That's never happened in the past. It has to do with the training models. It's to do with the large population we have, digital literate, very hungry. So when you put these things together, I think we are in a unique position in this part of the world to be able to monetize this opportunity like never before. So I couldn't be more enthused about not only working for technology, working in the middle of AI, but also working for geographies, which I feel very bullish about.
Yeah. Now, of course, while we talk about AI workloads, it changes the traffic patterns also. Now, and Amit, if you can get into the conversation for this, how do these new traffic patterns change the way networks are engineered now, particularly from an optical and of course also from the capacity, planning standpoint?
Well, I think the old, so many definitions are changing about connectivity, right? When we said connectivity earlier, we used to talk about user to cloud.
Yeah.
Right? That changed. It moved from cloud to cloud. It is data center to data center. Now, and the amount of data that is moving is absolutely unheard of. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and I said, when he said petabytes flowing between data centers, was something that I read only in textbooks. Because I had not seen that in my lifetime. Data centers, I don't know about Amajit. I mean, we are doing a similar project, a project together, but that's petabytes of data flowing. And this is just the beginning. Now, when that happens and this kind of traffic is moving, obviously the entire way you have to think of networks changes. Because this network also has to be absolutely low latency. It has to be the fastest. You have to consume you have to have very high level of spectrum efficiency, right? And you cannot do that manually any longer. You have to have a very programmable network, and you have AI fully embedded into whatever you deliver, right? What I mentioned earlier. And that's why your networks need to optimize on their own. The networks need to be self-healing. The networks need to be programmatic. They need to be intelligent. It is not about a dumb pipe any longer. It has to be very, very intelligent if you have to address this kind of traffic.
Yeah. Building on that, Amajit, AI workloads behave very differently from traditional cloud traffic, be it in terms of latency, like he was talking about, be in terms of sensitivity, scale, or east and west movement. It's very different, right? So what does this mean for how infrastructure providers now design or monetize networks for that matter?
So look, our perspective is, the big data networks got first built for when the internet arrived. And it was voice networks retrofitted to deliver best effort data for you. Somehow or the other, you'd be able to get a response from internet based on which part of the world we are and which time and space you're using. Then you came to cloud, where it became a little more deterministic, but you're still, as a human being, talking to a large server pool called the cloud, and you started having enterprises applications. And then things like reliability, things like latency became important enough. With AI, our theory is the fundamental design of network goes completely for a toss. It's inverted. I'll tell you two aspects. One is the aspect called synchronicity. Now, neither the internet nor the cloud actually deserve that every packet has to be synchronous with each other. They were asynchronous by design. The different data sessions had to be asynchronous by design. Now, with this thing called GPU and compute, and excessively, number of GPUs, which cost a lot, the ability to sync these GPUs in real time to be able to produce the result that you do in a distributed computing environment means they have to be completely synchronous. That's where large chunks of data need to be actually synchronized together, and they have to cater to extraordinary levels of low jitter, not just latency and reliability. Now, if you feed that all together, then you say, what does the network take to deliver it? It actually inverts the design order at the basics, the basics of pure fiber, for example. That's why you see companies such as Microsoft pioneering hollow core fiber, which overturns latency concepts right at the media level. Then you come to the electronics layer. So people like Ciena are pioneering pluggables, flat networks, programmable networks, etc., etc. And for us in Lightstorm, it also means integrating these two, plus a very valuable layer called software, which basically orchestrates across all of these to be able to talk to multiple AI zones. It's very rare that you would actually query a AI engine which would fetch everything out of its own data load. It would actually go up multiple AI LLMs and even multiple clouds. Now, that's the complexity we are hitting in AI. I'm really enthused about it because this brings together an opportunity for providers such as ours, and we would like to lead it, to be able to differentiate this network and create the final value. And what's the final value? The final value really is in the usage that enterprises and consumers get from inferencing out of these local language models or small language models. So essentially, if you put it all together, you'll find that the scale across that talking about outside the data center becomes a massive problem to solve, and which is across the fiber media, the network, as well as software. And providers such as us have either to sit there and provide the right structure for AI to flow, or potentially bypass this opportunity, leave it to the cloud.
I would like to add to what Amajit said, because honestly, the best is yet to come. Because the scale across is relatively newer as a phenomenon. Because when the data centers started coming up, you felt you could do enough processing in one data center. Then you said, no, you need a cluster of data centers, but you were running out of power. Then you said those data centers are going to be further apart, and in some cases as further apart as 1,000 kilometers. Now, just imagine the complexity of those networks when you have to run that, and that is what he was alluding to when he said the scale across is going to be a very big opportunity. There is yet another opportunity which is coming up, which is what we've not was keen to talk about that, and that will also change a lot of things, because he did talk about inferencing. There is physical AI coming up now. And in countries like Korea, I was recently speaking to my Korea team, and we were given to understand they're already doing pilot projects where they want to put humanoids in retail outlets, things like that. So just imagine, and these things we keep reading. Is it going to happen, physical AI? The answer is yes. We can only debate about timing, whether it is 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. But what if it starts happening? That means today your consumer is a robot who has to be continuously connected. So it is not you and me as a consumer who have certain peak hour loads and certain times when we are not working. But imagine you're continuously connected at super peak loads, because there is network there is data which is moving back and forth and has to be low latency. And that's why networks will become even more critical. The way your question on how are you going to design those networks, it's going to be so much more complex and very different, and partly what Amajit alluded to.
So Phil, thank you so much for this detailed insights on this particular topic. When we talk about this shift, you've spoke about how it's going to influence a lot of things, but specifically in terms of energy efficiency or spectrum usage, or you spoke about automation already a bit, but automation at scale, how it's going to influence that?
Absolutely. I mean, I often say there are 3 S's that are important. The first one, we discuss scale, and scale is critical. The second is security, which we didn't discuss, but security is very, very critical, because the environment which we live in. I think it is going to be, and with more and more AI and eventually quantum, this will get even more challenging. But the third most important is sustainability, because there is only that much power, right? And that is why, as Ciena, every generation of technology that moves up, when we move from 400 to 800, 800 to 1.6 tera, we've doubled. But from a power and space perspective, it's half. 1.6 tera solution takes half the amount of space, half the amount of power consumption. So sustainability is super critical to our customers, and for us, it's a core from our belief system. So whatever we develop in terms of innovation, we ensure that it becomes more and more sustainable.
Yeah, all right, absolutely. Now, gentlemen, let's move on to, platforms, programmability and consumption models as well. And Amajit, if you can join this conversation with platforms like Polarin, they are now enabling on-demand connectivity. Are enterprises and hyperscalers starting to sort of expect networks to be consumed the way, they consume cloud infrastructure and all?
Absolutely. Okay, so firstly, I think if you look at the specificity of workloads that enterprises will start using, they fall under the quote-unquote domain of what's called inferencing, as opposed to training. The large language models are training themselves with millions of consumers, but the inferencing is a whole different case of building a use case specific to a manufacturing company, a banking or a cloud company, and therefore finding useful productivity. When you layer that on top of AI, you find that it's a whole different paradigm on the software automation and the observability layer, which needs to be put in the forth. So Lightstorm, for example, 3 months back, we announced a partnership with a innovator from Silicon Valley, a company called Arcus, which is funded by NVIDIA and SoftBank, which just specializes in building a software which optimizing inferencing to the right LLM through the right path with the GPU cluster, which is least use, and lends itself to the NVIDIA vision of AI factory. And we plan to layer it on top of the Polarin layer, which you referred to create one integrated AI programmable software layer, which then enterprises can actually freely program just like they do for cloud.
And this is how essentially the traditional telco relationship has also changed with time, right?
Correct. So for us, I find it a little tough to relate to the traditional telco. We have never been one. Our relationships have been with the cloud, AI, and the enterprise. And to that extent, if you see the network that we design, it might look the same from outside, like a telco network. But if you peel the onion, you find that it's completely different than a traditional telecom, if that's what you mean.
Gentlemen, now I would like to move on to something very interesting, subsea capacity. Now, before jumping onto the new project that has been started, I would like to come to you, Amit, on first of all, why subsea capacity is once again central in the AI era, and then we'll probably talk about the new project that's coming.
As they say, data flows, data cannot be held, right? So all that compute that you're building, all the training modules we spoke about, LLMs, we said inferencing. So if the training modules are all in the US and then they have to finally connect with consumers, it has to flow. And where does it flow through? It flows through subsea. But there's only that much subsea capacity that you have. If you were to plan for new subsea capacity, it takes you many years. I mean, absolutely new cables, because it's not so fast as terrestrial, right? It takes you much longer. And that is why you need to get the maximum out of whatever cables that you have. And that's again where I said our innovation of WaveLogic 6, which is 1.6 teras, but also offers a much higher spectral efficiency comes in. And again, space and power is always a constraint for subsea. So subsea will again come in. So all the data, which is, as I said, is from North America or anywhere else, if it has to get connected to India or Australia or anywhere, it has to flow through subsea. So subsea becomes a critical link. And that connects further to the data centers, which are in country or anywhere else in the Asia Pacific area, for example, or anywhere in India.
Let's talk about that connect now with the upgraded JGA submarine cable that you did with Ciena, connecting Japan and Australia, right? So tell us more about this project.
So look, we actually bought a submarine company about 1.5 years back, and we integrated that. That's called JGA. Now, this essentially for us is not a subsea asset. We look at it as one which connects 21 data centers across the US, across Guam, across Australia. So when you look at what's inside the data center, it's essentially large cloud zones and AI zones. So it gives us a platform to be able to orchestrate across those. The upgrade that we did with Ciena is actually a significant one. It quadruples the capacity. More importantly, it quadruples capacity in today's geopolitics across the route from Japan to US, which bypasses the South China Sea. For the uninitiated, there are two parts of subsea cable, one which passes to China seas and one which doesn't. Ours is one of the few cables which doesn't, and therefore lends itself to a lot of traffic who don't want to go down South China Sea. So that's the significance of this product, and we're very proud of the partnership with Ciena and the ability to upgrade it so fast.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a very important point that you just spoke about. Moving on to the convergence that we are talking, the telecom, cloud and data centers convergence. We've spoke about it a lot, but over to you. What does this convergence actually look like?
I think if you were to talk to a hyperscaler, for them, the network itself has to be converged, right? Because for them, network needs to behave like a cloud. Because network needs to be always on, like he says, should be able to be scalable, just like a cloud was. And that's where we are seeing today the lines between a cloud, a data center, and network are blurring. In a hyperscaler world, they probably don't even exist any longer. It is one single fabric all across, right? And that's why the network is super critical, as I said. And if in a world of convergence, again, AI and software become extremely critical. Because if it is going to be one single fabric, it has to be programmable. It has to be have AI ops embedded in whatever you do. And on top of it, there has to be another layer of software which allows you to manage that as a converged environment.
All right. Gentlemen, we spoke a bit about India being a hub when we talk about in global data flows. We touched upon this topic a bit, but when we talk about this entire role that India is playing, what needs to happen now? I'll move to you across infrastructure, across policy and investment.
So I think firstly, India has a great opportunity to move and move fast. And in our simple opinion, I think it got to evolve to a collaboration between ecosystem partners. I agree with some of the policymakers when they say AI is a problem of diffusion. Okay, and to that extent, there is this dichotomy of overestimating the promise of the technology in the short term and underestimating the promise of technology in the medium to the long term. Now, to do that, I think some of the policy enablers on the GPU ecosystem most welcome. And I think the same enablers need to proliferate across people who are building massive data centers, massive power plants, and massive GPU factories, and putting them all together along with the local language models. We work very closely with the government trying to explain these things. And so far, I think in India, we've been very enthused with the policy level support we've been getting. And to the extent, the ball is on the private sector's court to step it up with respect to the integration they need. Because in the end, I would like to mention one thing. In this new AI world, the compute is the network, which basically means you can throw in as much GPUs as you can, but the entire compute to be available to hundreds of millions of users is only going to happen when the network starts working. And that's really a little bit collaboration. I think there are much more bigger issues to be solved around power and cooling, which the government is seized of, obviously. Not my expertise, but deep problems.
All right. But that's the short-term goal or short-term capabilities you're looking at, or is the long-term one?
So for us in Lightstorm, we're looking at long-term. But let me caveat. I was speaking to a very informed person. He says, you guys are building something which is really long-term. And I said, oh, what do you mean by long-term? He said, it's almost 8 months away. And I said, to build such infrastructure, you get the point. To build such infrastructure, it takes 2 years. But this is the biggest of the world. And I just realized that the time cycles at which these technologies are moving are at such super speed that what is long term to somebody is actually super short term to me and Amit on this panel.
When we talk about Amit, 3 to 5 years ahead, is it long term or short term for you?
Actually, 3 to 5 years is too long term these days because the way things are changing. I mean, sometimes I'm surprised that 6 months ago, certain things seemed like science fiction and they become a reality, right? If that is the scenario, 3 to 5 years is a very long time. And there's a lot that will change in 3 to 5 years. But one thing which will not change and probably become even more a high pressure environment is the whole thing about time to market.
Hmm.
And that is where I think people like Lightstorm, they want to be always ahead of the curve. They
Hmm.
move much more faster
Hmm.
because there is no other option, but you have to be much more nimble.
Hmm.
Because if you're not able to evolve faster, if you're not able to build faster, then you'll definitely miss out, because this race is a super fast one.
Yeah, and this is exactly what the infrastructure providers need to get right at
Yeah.
this point in time, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Amajit and Amit, for your insights. And it's clear that in the AI era, networks are no longer just pipes. They are programmable, scalable platforms powering the future of digital economies. Thank you to our audiences for joining us at Ciena Presents ET Studios Tech Talks in association with ETTelecom.